Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about rediscovering yourself and understanding what brings you joy, giving your partner the gift of your absence, and being in a strong relationship when the asteroid hits. But before we dive into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
Oh, I've had quite a big week, actually.
Yeah?
A few things have fueled me up. I had a couple of really good work and career and business wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had one of my possibly almost longest, besties come and visit from interstate for the weekend. So we did lots of very fuel up, nourishing things, spending extended bit of time together. We went for a really beautiful dinner overlooking the harbour and...
Yeah, how nice.
Yeah, we've been on some big long walks and talks, and just it was really nice to not just catch up but also kind of hang out. So that was really nourishing this last week.
Spend some time in each other's presence.
Yeah. What about you, Nath? What fueled you up?
So after quite a bit of a pretty rubbish weather in Sydney, I went out for a really nice walk the other day, just doing our normal coastal walk, but the ocean was really calm and the sun was out and birds were all out and chirping and stuff like that. And it was just really beautiful to actually get out and be in nature again and be somewhere that was looking so beautiful.
We're halfway through winter. Hopefully the rain is almost at the end.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm pretty ready for spring to come and to dive back into summer. So really keen for a few more beautiful days like that. But now let's jump into this week's ep.
Today we've got Tiphany Kane and David Sais joining us. Tiphany is the Heck Yes Coach. She is an entrepreneur, public speaker, writer, and host of the Radical Audacity in Love and Life and Mastering the Podcaster Mindset. From escaping a cult-like religion, living an abusive marriage, and starting a new business, Tiphany is passionate about coaching women to turn life's painful no's in life and business into empowered opportunities to find the heck yes. David Sais is a professional voiceover and dialogue editor with more than 2 decades of professional editing experience. He's a podcast producer, podcast host, and co-founder of KaSa Media Productions. David has found his calling in helping coaches and business owners produce high-quality podcast content that connects with audiences and creates communities. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's so great to be here.
Hey, David, I'm very much looking forward to your critique as a podcast expert on a podcast.
Well,
be careful what you ask for.
right? Yeah, be careful what you ask for. No, I'm pretty nice when it comes to podcasts. To me, I like more of a natural feel. I like people to hear the conversation and hear the room where they're recording. And to me, that's how people connect. So I'm all about natural.
Yeah. So we had the show for 2 years and it was a learning curve for sure. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm sure in hindsight, we definitely could have done with someone like you right at the beginning to be like, here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to having this conversation because hanging out with podcasters is always very cool.
Oh, that's great.
So what that intro and bio didn't say is that the two of you are actually in a relationship, right?
Yes,
we are.
So I reckon that's a good place to start, considering you're on the Date Forever podcast. We talk all about relationship with self and dating the person that you're with forever. So who would like to kick us off with your love story?
Oh my goodness.
Tiphany?
Okay, I love this question. So when we met, I had been divorced a little over 5 years. And David, you were about the same, right? About approximately 5 years, somewhere in there. And we met on a dating app, OkCupid. And David broke all my rules. Totally. Like I almost didn't go on a date with him. So my rules were that if I want to date somebody who is serious about dating, and I assume if they're serious about dating, they've done a good job with their profile. They're filling it out in several pictures and done a good job. Well, David broke that rule. He had like 2 or 3 pictures and his name and like nothing else. And then my second rule was if somebody sends like 5 paragraphs of a message, I'm not even bothering, because so many times it was like a scammer type of person doing that kind of thing, right? So I was like, forget it, not even bothering. Well, David, his first message to me was paragraphs long, and I almost just deleted it. I was like, forget it.
He was obviously making up for the lack of profile.
Right.
With the first message.
But amidst these paragraphs, there was a short little paragraph and it caught my eye. I didn't read the rest. I just read this short little paragraph and it said, oh my goodness, I'm sitting at lunch right now at, what mall was it? Some fancy mall. I'm sitting at lunch right now in this fancy outdoor mall we have in Newport. And I just saw a woman put a plunger in her Louis Vuitton bag. And the way he said it, like I just paraphrased, he was so descriptive. I laughed out loud. And I'm like, oh, I might need to check this person out. This is hilarious. Like he's funny. And we kind of did a back and forth and met up. And he was one of those like messaging. And I was finally like, you know what? I don't like messaging too much. So give me a call. And he gave me a call. And then he kept calling. And we had a date set for Saturday. And this is like Sunday or Monday. And I'm like, okay, so you've called a lot. And I'm not going to give you much more of my time before I meet you. So do you want to meet? And he's like, yes. I'm like, okay, well, I've got Tuesday open. We already had a date for Saturday. So David, take it from there. What did you do?
From there, we had our pre-first date. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? Let's get together. So we met our pre-first date and had a great time. And it just made the anticipation of the actual first date all that much better. And it kind of just grew from there. We hit it off from the start for sure.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
So give us some timeline, because this was at a funny moment in time for the world,
it
right?
was, yeah.
Yes.
Well, we didn't know that it was a funny time for the world yet, because this was
at the time.
Yeah, this was January of 2020, so 2 months before the COVID shutdown. And so both of us, like, nobody knew that was going to be happening. And so as our new relationship started, we had gone out a few times saw each other quite often actually prior to the shutdown. And once the shutdown hit, I mean, it totally changed for everybody. So we are definitely a COVID relationship because 2 months into it, everybody stayed home. So we had a lot of personal time.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what it's been like navigating a new relationship and a global pandemic and government mandated lockdowns at the same time.
Yeah. So I was just about to say, we had I think, trial by fire relationship that brought us really close, really fast. Like you learn about the person you're with really fast in that kind of situation. There were a couple of things for us. So at the time, David lived about 45 minutes away, but it was on the other side of the mountains, like a mountainy hill range thing, like not quite mountains, but not hills, like big range. And they told us, there was these rumors going around that all the roads were going to be closed. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be stuck at home with my 2 kids and we're not going to be able to see each other. And he's like, no. See those hills? This is literally a direct line across the hills to you. I would run over the mountain for you. And like, I have run to the top of that mountain before. So it's really not that hard to just go down the other side and get to you. And that's the kind of man he is. And that's how he was through the whole pandemic. There was one day he showed up, our TV broke, and he showed up at my door with a new TV. And you know what I mean? Like he just took care of us. And so he actually ended up moving in. David moved in during the pandemic because it just made sense. It just made sense. And he was so good with my boys, and it was their toughest time. It was the emotional toll on children for the pandemic was phenomenal. And my boys had it really rough and experienced a lot of very big emotions. And David just so patient and so loving and so kind and so great at connecting with the boys that it really was a gift. And in the midst of all that, we battled cancer. And we all got COVID and got really sick. And then I had a cancer scare and a big surgery. So, like, we've been through it.
Yeah. We feel like since January of 2020, for me, as far as the ups and downs, the emotions, it feels more like 5 to 10 years because of everything that's happened, right? Like there's been so many things that have come up over this time period that it's all just been compressed into a very short amount of time. So
yeah. I want to come back to the health stuff, and I'm very sorry that this has happened, but I want to go there in a minute. But you both mentioned that you'd come from previous marriages or core relationships. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of maybe the lessons that you learned from those relationships that you've carried into this one?
For me, definitely would be conversation. Be open about everything. Don't hide anything. Talk about your feelings. Talk about your issues. Talk about the good and the bad. If you're not willing to talk about both, then there's going to be issues for sure.
And so how long out of your relationship were you, David, when you and Tiphany connected?
I think it was pretty close to 5 years, right around the same as Tiphany, I think. Yeah. And I hadn't really even I wasn't really looking for a relationship. I was staying at a friend's house that was local to, very close to where Tiphany lives. And I, joined the dating app I guess I'll start going out on dates again. I hadn't really even started any of that and wasn't expecting to find love and wasn't expecting to find Tiphany. And then as I'm scrolling through, there she was, and the rest is history.
Another broken rule, Tiphany.
I was his first date on the app.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We've had a few people on the show that have had success through OkCupid, so must be doing something right.
That's great. It's a good ad for them, I guess.
I guess so. For me, I left an abusive marriage. And I think for me, the big lesson was learning boundaries, learning self-love. I had to unlearn a lot of harmful, toxic things from that relationship. How do you communicate in a healthy way? How do you hold your boundaries and hold your space in a healthy way? How do you show respect and love for the other person while also showing respect and love for yourself? I think when you're in a toxic, abusive marriage, you lose all of that. So I actually worked with the relationship coach for several years before I met David to help me unlearn the harmful, toxic things and to learn the healthy, just the healthy ways to be in a relationship.
Yeah. Tiphany, I don't know if you've got any like golden nuggets that you can share from that, but like what are some of the things that have helped you transition from that, maybe lacking respect and love for yourself to now having that? What's that been like? And is there anything you can share from that?
Yeah, there's a great visualization. So if you look at yourself as a beautiful oak tree, an oak tree has strong, beautiful roots that go deep into the earth and lush. It's beautiful and lush and very welcoming and inviting. And people love to sit under an oak tree and sit there and read a book or have a picnic or play or something because the air is light and it's cool and it's shady. And so if you're an oak tree that's really inviting and people enjoy being around you, but you're also very strong, they can climb your branches and push against you and there can be a storm and you're not going to get knocked over because you are very strong in your core. And so that visualization helped me a lot because I think a lot of times we turn boundaries into this prickly armor thing where we push people away. And that's not a true boundary, right? So a true boundary is you're soft on the front and you're hard in the back, right? Like you've got that strong spine but you're soft and inviting in the front. And that really helped me a lot, that visualization. And using that visualization also helps me when I see that going away. And I will literally tell David, you know what? I can feel my prickly armor coming on, so I need to step away. And being able to communicate with him that I am feeling this armor and I know that is what precedes an argument, I just need to step away. And he's so respectful of that. Okay, she needs a little bit of space. And then he's also very respectful of what can I do now? How can I help? I don't like pushing you in that space. What pushed you there? So that we can talk about that.
So you said that one of the key lessons from your leaving your marriage was around boundaries. And then it sounds like this is still something a muscle that you're building and flexing regularly.
Of course. Absolutely.
I'd love to know, like, from that very, maybe first step of going, okay, I'm recognizing that I've had not great boundaries or things that have not been serving me. What were some of the first things that you did to start implementing healthy boundaries to respect yourself and the person that you're trying to have a healthy, happy, thriving relationship with?
So I started long before I met David. I started things like getting involved in groups and activities that brought me joy. I hadn't done that in my marriage. I totally lost. I didn't know who I was or what I liked. I was so devoid of boundaries. I was sitting with a therapist. This was at the end of my marriage, and she's like, well, do you like doing this? I'm like, yeah, sure, fine, it's fine. Well, what about that? Well, that's fine. Like every question she asked me, my answer was, yeah, that's fine. It's okay. She's all, you do realize you have no boundaries, right? And I was like, what do you mean by boundaries? What are these things called boundaries? I just wanted to be the nice girl and make everybody happy, which meant that nobody was happy, including myself, right? So learning how to start doing things that made me happy. And it was just going out and trying a ton of things. I tried rigging, what is it called? Like a canoeing kind of like ocean. And it was fun, but I didn't quite like that. I joined a cycling team and I loved that. And I ended up doing a 100-mile bike ride. I joined a running team and ended up doing several marathons. I tried aerial dance, like on silks and hoops and stuff like that. And I ended up performing with them. I tried acro yoga, ended up doing that for a little while. So it's just kind of like joined a book club. We're still going, just trying things and figuring out what it is that I like, what it is I don't like. And that is a great way to start with the boundaries, is just start with, what do you like? What fills you up? What brings you joy? And so continuing into our relationship is, going to Pilates class brings me joy. So I make sure I keep doing that. Meeting with my book club friends brings me joy. So I make sure I keep doing that. And so little things like that where it brings me joy and fills my bucket, to make sure I'm doing that stuff.
Yeah. I love that so much. And as I said, you're on the Date Forever podcast, and a big part of that is dating yourself, and not just the warm, fluffy, taking yourself out for coffee and, those kinds of things, but about really deeply knowing what brings you joy. How do you like to move your body?
Yeah.
How do you like to sweat? How do you like to be creative? How do you like to relax and recharge? And it's surprising how many people really don't know the answer to that. So I applaud you for getting curious and being I'm just willing to try things. I'm just going to try things. And it's so okay if it's not fun, right? You're okay, I gave that a go.
Yeah. Didn't really
That's
like
not
it.
For me.
Outrigger canoe. That's what it was. I knew it was something with rigging. Outrigger canoe. Came to me.
Yeah.
David and I had a really interesting conversation the other day. Pandemic kind of really messed up our activity level as far as exercise and all that. We were both super, super active before we met. And then pandemic messed all of that up. And then life, starting a business and all of that together. But we were having a conversation and there was a big aha for us around exercise. And David, I hope you don't mind that I'm saying this.
No, definitely not.
But he said to me, I have actually a lot of fears around really getting into my exercise routine, because that's when my marriage ended last time. Because David's a very and when he gets into something, he gets into it. And he's
all or nothing kind of guy.
Yeah.
And it ended.
I like to win.
And so that was a fascinating conversation. What did you take from that conversation, David?
It gave us we both sort of have the same feeling about it, that it's that passion that we have for things that drew us to each other. And I can recall when we first started dating, we had 2 months where we were normal life before shutdown. And during that time, Tiphany was doing Pilates and she was doing her aerial stuff with the hoop and all that kind of stuff. And she was involved in so many things that she was passionate about. That joy that she had when she was doing those things is what attracted me to her. And if you take that away, if I look at it from her standpoint, okay, well, why would I feel like what I'm doing is going to be a detriment to our relationship if when I see her doing those things, I look at it as a benefit because she's out there doing things she loves. I love seeing her in that type of environment, enjoying herself and living her best life. Why would I expect her not to feel the same about the things that I'm doing? And so I had to look at it from a different point of view for sure, because it felt like in my previous relationship that those things were limiting time together with my partner. And what it was really doing was I was kind of in a similar situation where we had been together for so long that I had almost forgotten who I was. And so because I'm a pleaser, I don't like conflict. I like to, kind of help smooth the tides a little bit. And so I think in doing that, I've almost lost who I was and what I really enjoyed. And when I started exercising and getting healthy again, it started taking me back to what I really enjoyed. And so knowing that Tiphany was able to do those things and I appreciated that, I should be able to see the same thing for myself and know that she's going to appreciate it the same way that I do for her. So it was a definite turning point for me. And I mean, we're constantly learning things about one another, and it's great to know that even this far in, I mean, we're fairly young as far as the relationship goes, a couple of years, but the bigger picture, but so we still have room to grow and still have plenty of room to learn about one another. And we just need to be open. And again, communication is so crucial to a happy relationship.
So David, what did your journey look like to kind of rediscovering yourself and what you really enjoyed?
It's very similar to Tiphany, I think. It was me going out and just finding the things that I was passionate about and allowing myself to do them. I think part of the reason that I felt that it was damaging to my relationship, to my previous relationship, was because I had taken all of that stuff out of it. And so in doing that to make sure that my partner was happy, I had kind of given up a little bit of myself in the process. And it wasn't until I started dating Tiphany, I think, that I realized that. And it had been several years since I had been out of my relationship, but I hadn't really put the two together as far as that goes. And I think we really need to be happy with the person that we are to really have our partner be happy with us. It's like when I get up myself, I like getting up early and going for a run or whatever and doing my exercising in the morning. And every time I do, Tiphany is like, oh my gosh, I think that's so sexy that you got up and did that. Like, she loves it when I do that kind of thing. And I take the time for myself. And it's great having that reinforcement saying, you know what, it's okay for you to take time for yourself and be yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really love that, because it is so easy within a relationship. Like, and when you do meet someone, you want to spend time with them and you want to do things with them. And it's so easy to just mesh your two circles together and become one kind of codependent
blob.
Yeah.
But then, like, if there's things that I love doing that Sammy doesn't enjoy doing, then if you are that codependent blob, I'm going to end up losing those things or not doing those things because I'm wanting to spend time with you or wanting to do everything with you. So I think it is really important to have that overlap, but also have that portion of your own lives as well. Yeah. That where you are doing those things that you are really passionate about.
Right.
So.
To echo what you're saying, Nath started playing footy, I don't know, 2 seasons ago. And that was something that we'd sort of talked about, like, hey, I think this would be really great for you. Because in the past, Nate's hobbies had always been like I'll do it when I want to do it, mountain biking or rock climbing. Like, there was no fixed schedule or agenda or anything, where no time where he had to be at a certain place at a certain time. And introducing footy was going to mean one night a week is training and then game on Saturday, and you have to be, you have to show up for your team. Yeah. And I think that was a big part of the resistance of like you starting was like, yeah, but then that's taking into our time together. And I think that is like a dialogue that you can get trapped in of like, yeah, but if I make that commitment to myself, then there is like a net of hours that I'm committing to this other thing. But like, I love seeing you playing footy and like that, hearing you talk about the game and your experience and like the connections, social connections that you're making. But it also gives me like freedom and space to be on my own and enjoy my space. And I've definitely, particularly like the Saturday, like when you're at a game, I'm like, oh, this is my time and I can do whatever I want with it. It's amazing. Yeah. So it's like, it's this gift.
There was an ulterior motive.
Go play. It'll be nice. You'll enjoy it. That's it.
Yeah, and I think we forget that too. Yeah. Like, let me give you the gift of my absence.
Right.
Like,
it is.
That's no joke.
Yeah. There is, there's that saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I mean, there's too much absence that's not good, right? But these little pockets of girls' weekend or training for your athletic event or, whatever, like it gives you something to talk about that's not a shared activity that then you get to talk about and you get to, it's just new stuff, right? And energized. And
yeah, we had a guest on the show talk about it like, hey, you've got this campfire that you've built together. How amazing is it to keep it roaring, But if both of you only ever sit at the campfire, it will burn out. Whereas if you both take turns to go off and one of you mans the fire and the other one goes and gets kindling and fuel to add to it, then it gets to keep burning and you get to come back and share all these exciting things and keep that campfire burning. Obviously, I love this because our business is Fuel Collective. So the idea of like going and collecting fuel and bringing it back for your relationship, like I'm all for it.
Yeah. That is wonderful.
I love this.
That's a great visualization. I really like it.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I love visualizations.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I think it makes concepts so much easier to understand.
Yeah. But it also, like what you were saying, Tiphany, is like when you were in that stage of life where you're like, oh yeah, it's kind of interesting. Oh yeah, that sounds fun. Oh yeah, like a bit indifferent about these experiences. Like that's not a sexy person, is it? Like that's not like, how can I possibly know who you are and connect with you if you have no opinion or idea, or there's nothing that really brings you joy and you're just like this monotone version of a human?
Yeah.
So do you feel that in yourself now that you've got like more, maybe it's polarity?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I'm not afraid to say, okay, so for instance, I'm somebody that I like to say I'm an extroverted introvert, right? So I enjoy people, I like people, and then there comes a time where I'm like, no more. And so I used to suffer through that and be at events and be in that place of discomfort, and it would just exhaust me to no end. Now we can go to an event and I can say to David, okay, I'm ready to go home. And he's like, all right. And we go. And sometimes it's an hour into it. Sometimes it lasts a little longer. But I don't feel bad saying I've reached my limit. If I go much farther, I'm going to be absolutely miserable. And I'll be like, hey, lover, take me home. And he's like, oh, okay. Like that's kind of fun. Like,
it's led to some steamy evenings, that's for sure.
But I can say that I've hit my place and I'm ready to go. And it's so nice to be able to do that because I'd never been that way before. At the same time, because I know that I can leave when I'm ready, I can be full in and have a blast and dance. And we went to a party where I was like bull riding and like we can do that. I can be all in and just be passionate and have a blast because I know I can leave. Right. Whereas before it'd be like, I'm like afraid and I know this is going to stress me out and I'm going to be, and so I would go to the party worried. Right.
Yeah. That inability to honor your own boundary and your own limit and be like being able to speak up and voice like, okay, I've had enough now, as opposed to like, oh, we can stay as long as you want to stay. Like such a different dynamic.
And then having to hold back because you know you need something in reserve to kind of get you through for the next 3, 4, 5 hours.
Right.
And then you go home mad versus going home happy.
Or just like leaving with fuel still in the tank.
Exactly.
Or totally depleted. It's different energy.
And I love you guys how you talk about the different fuel tanks. That was really great. And so so making sure your fuel tank's not depleted is such a loving thing to do for your partner. To say, hey, I can feel I'm getting low, so let's do something to fix it. It's so much nicer for your partner than like, I just hit empty and this is terrible. That's not good.
Yeah. Put the warning light on first before you actually hit empty.
Yeah.
Like, you've only got so many Ks to go before this is over. We're conking out on the side.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the health hurdles that you've both sort of faced in your quite short relationship. So this is a little bit morbid, but I have this belief that at some point in your life, in your relationship, you're going to have an asteroid of some sort, whether or not that's, a financial one, someone losing their job, a lot of money going somewhere, whether or not it's going to be one of you getting sick or a family member or a total shift in work or career. There's going to be something. I think one of those things that happens to other people is going to happen to you.
Absolutely.
And one of the beliefs that I have is that if you can take care of your relationship and your life and you have most of those fuel tanks on the top half of full, not necessarily all full all the time, but, they're at a healthy level of balance, that you are going to be better positioned to manage that asteroid when it hits.
Yes.
So I would love to hear from you a little bit about what you've experienced in terms of the asteroid hitting in what has been quite a short relationship.
Yeah, and it's not an asteroid; it's multiple.
Tell us.
We've been in an asteroid shower. I tell you what. But it's funny because that was one of my early things I told David is it is so easy to be in a good relationship when things are good, and that's not what interests me. I want to know who you are when times get tough. We're 48. Well, he's a baby. He's 47. But, 47, 48 years old, our parents are getting up in age. We both have experienced some disasters in our life, big traumas with friends, trauma, like with people passing away that we love dearly. And so I told him early on, I am most interested in who you are when times are really, really rough. And I want to be the person for you. And we would have those conversations. What do you want when times are rough? Who do you want to be with? What does it look like? And I'm glad we had those conversations early because we got hit with it. And so it was during the pandemic and right around Thanksgiving time of, was it 2020 or was it 2021? It's all pandemic.
It's a blur, isn't it?
Pandemic.
Those 2 years are like one big mushy blur shape.
I think it was November of 2020. Like we had not been together very long.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, David got a cancer diagnosis and had to go through surgery. And, that was early. That was a big thing. And I think we handled it really well. It was, he had to learn how to let me take care of him, which is not easy for him. And because he is a giver, and does not ever want me to suffer, strain, anything in any way, shape, or form. I mean, he will come running. Oh, you don't need to carry that. You don't need to do that. Like, he's the kind of person that wants my life to be as easy as possible. And so for me to take care of him, that took a lot out of him for him to let me do that. And he did. And I know that is a different form of strength, is being able to receive and being able to be open about your concerns and your worries. And he let me be emotional about it, which probably wasn't easy for him to see that, but I was allowed to tell him my worries and concerns. And I think it brought us closer than anything. It really did. What do you think, David?
100% agree. For me, it was very difficult because, like she said, I'm not somebody who is really open to other people doing things for me. I'm very private when it comes to that sort of stuff. And so it was a different experience having somebody want to be involved in something like that. If it was before, I wouldn't have said anything to anybody really other than, oh yeah, I got to go and have a surgery. And that would have been about it. I wouldn't really have talked to anybody, even my family, my close family. Real briefly might have mentioned there's a slight concern of cancer, but they're just going to remove a couple things and I'll be good to go. It's no big deal. And that probably would have been it. So it was definitely a growing experience for me, needing to allow her in, because part, I think, of making sure that she was okay during that time period was giving her all the information possible and letting her know what I was thinking. Where if I had tried to kind of hide that stuff and keep it within myself like I typically would have, her life would have been much more difficult. And like she just said, I try and do things that make her life easier. And so if me talking about something is going to make her life easier, then I need to be able to talk about it. So...
So, David, my hypothesis here is that by you minimizing the experience for other people, you were also able to minimize it for yourself and downplay like how big of a deal. The C word, like that's not what people want to hear when they go see the doctor, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You could go in and get a scan and they could tell you, well, you've got 2 weeks. So you have no idea. Yeah. I think leading up to it is the scariest part. And that's typically where I would have been my most quiet about it until I knew about something. Until I'm typically the one that, until I know 100%, I'm not going to worry about something. There's no reason for me to worry unless there's reason for me to worry. Does that make sense? So I'm not the type to sit there and cry and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what's happening. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm not going to worry about the who knows until I have a reason to worry about it. Where a lot of people, you start being concerned from the moment you find out there's a possible problem. So I think it was a definite growing point for me in allowing Tiphany to share that experience with me.
Mm. So what was it that made you decide, hey, in the past I wouldn't have shared this, I would have downplayed, minimized? Was there something that happened, or was there an opportunity where you were like, okay, I'm consciously choosing to do this differently?
I believe that I consciously chose to do it differently because of how the response that I got from Tiphany. She was very, you know what, we're a team. We're going to share this stuff, whatever your struggles are, my struggles. I want to fully understand what's going on so that I can support you in every way that's possible. And I think having that level of support was new to me. And so it made it a lot easier for me to open up and share my feelings. I'm still very, very private. I still have a hard time doing it, but with how she is, as far as making sure that I understand that by me allowing her in is making her closer to me, I think that's helped a lot as far as giving me the ability to open up. So really it's because of her and how she responded during that time.
And I let him know through, even before this, like with other things that we were dealing with, was I feel safer when I know. The unknown to me is a very scary place. The stories I make up in my head, they're worse than anything we could ever experience, right? So if you can let me know what's happening, I can handle anything. I think this goes to financial situations. We're in a business together. So like financially, like I just need to know. We can handle anything. I just need to know. It's when I don't know that I don't feel safe. Health issues, as long as I know what's happening, we can go through anything together. We can figure it out. We can make a game plan. It's the not knowing that's the really unsafe, unsure. And that's when my emotions and my imagination go wild, because I am one of those people, man. The stories I can create are, I got a great imagination, and it can go there.
Worrying about worrying.
Oh yeah. Like that's one of my big personality things that I work on, is that don't worry about things you don't have to worry about. Because I'm good at the worry. I got that down pat. So I think also for him, knowing that he can make me feel safer, if David knows if he can talk to me, he can calm me down and I feel safer. So, yeah.
So what was that transition like? I mean, like you already said, this is quite early in your relationship to be receiving an asteroid and then navigating it with someone who's not overly practiced at using vulnerability. You mentioned that it brought you closer and you had a stronger relationship, but what did it look like? What did the before state and the after state from like navigating this big thing together?
Well, for me, I can't speak for David, but for me, there was a lot I learned about myself as well, right? So I'm the type of person, I'll go to every doctor's appointment with you. We'll work through this together. He didn't need that. That stressed him out. So he didn't want me at the doctor's with him, things like that. And so I had to learn how to give him the space he needed and be very respectful of that, while also letting him know that he has my full support. So I think what that looked like before and after was there was this shift in respect and space, and learning that just because he doesn't want me at the doctor doesn't mean that he doesn't want me part of this process, right? And so I could take my ego out of it and if he doesn't want me at the doctor, that means that I'm not worth knowing about this and blah, 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 blah.
Or he's hiding something.
Or he's hiding. Yeah. So I could take that away, respect his space. And then I also had to learn that, yes, I can show my emotions, but I also have to be respectful of him with my emotions, right? So I needed him to feel safe sharing with me. So I did a lot of learning in, okay, how do I create a safe space for somebody who being vulnerable is not comfortable? So how do I create a safe space for that? And so I had a lot of learning to do. And I think that's something that helped me to grow forever, like that's a really positive change to keep. What about for you, David?
Well, I mean,
have you warmed to vulnerability? Are you like, yeah, I'm a bit more open to this thing now?
That's a good question. I have. It's definitely something I will continually work on, probably for the remainder of my life, because I've spent so long being a certain way. And it's different for me, for sure, having somebody that needs to see that side of me. That side of me actually makes her more comfortable. And so even like she mentioned, the doctor's appointments. For me, the doctor's appointments, it's no big deal. I'm just going to run there. Not really thinking about having her there and hearing what the doctor is saying would have made that whole process a little easier on her. I'm looking at it like, well, you've got work. I don't want you to take time off. To me, those weren't the big issues. They weren't, like you say, that wasn't the asteroid. That was just like a little part of the ride, I guess you could say. So it wasn't anything that in my eyes really needed to be, there was no reason for concern during that time. But knowing now, looking back on it, I can see that there's things that I could have done during that time that, would have been a little, wasn't important to me, but it was important to her. And there's little things that I could have done that would have helped to make that time a little more easy for her to process. So I think that definitely helped to open my eyes a little bit to how somebody else feels during that time. And even though it may not be 100% what we're used to, it wouldn't have been any more difficult for me, right? Having her there. Yeah. And so I just learned, I think, to see things, stop and really look at how somebody else is processing information and making sure that I'm taking that into consideration with the things that I'm doing and choices that I'm making and how much I'm involving that person. So,
and we had the tables turned just this year. I had some abnormal tests come back, both mammogram and uterine cervical. So at the exact same time, I had both breast cancer scare and cervical uterine cancer scare. And so we had to navigate those waters. And David was like, I'm coming to your appointments. I'm going to be there with you. And, so he was that person that was there with me through everything when I ended up having surgery. And he was there like at every appointment and with me all along the way. And so I think now that he's been on the other side of the table, my guess is, David, I don't want to speak for you, but my guess is you know that it made you feel better, that you could be my support there and you could be there for me. And it made you feel more secure and strong because you could be there for me. And so I think you understand now that
I do.
Me being able to be there for you gives me that comfort.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was going to ask that exactly. So what were some of the lessons that you learnt from kind of those early asteroids hitting that you've then taken into kind of some of these later asteroids?
I just really think, it's almost on repeat. It's that communication, right? Like we just have to talk through it openly. And I'm very fortunate that David is somebody who, he wants to make me so happy that he's willing to talk, right? Even though it's not his comfortable place to be, he knows it makes me feel better. And so he's willing to do it. And I think the more we practice it, the more we've done it, it's very natural now. I've got to say, 2.5 years together, we haven't really had any big giant blow-ups. We've had little things where, okay, I'm going to leave the room now. We've had little moments like that, but it's never been a big giant blow up. We've never said things to each other that we regret the next day. We've said things where the next day, well, maybe I'll call him on the phone and say, I've really been thinking about what you said and you're right. You're right. I've thought about it. And whereas last night was adamantly, no, you're not right. So we're able to talk and say, okay, I can see it from your perspective, which is really good. I think it says a lot. Me coming from a very, very, very toxic, abusive relationship where everything turned into a knockdown, drag out fight, doors being slammed and shouting and horrible things being said to each other and sometimes even physical things happening. Whereas that it hasn't happened. It's not even in our realm of possibility. Like we just don't do that stuff. And I think having gone through these big, big things together that we've gone through, it's really solidified for us this mutual respect that we have when we talk to each other.
I think that's such a good sign of like being in a healthy, thriving place in your relationship is when you can do that post-mortem or debrief on a conflict without getting back into conflict.
Right.
I can go, I did this well, I didn't do that well. In future, I'm going to take that lesson, or I really, on reflection, I hear, see, what it feel, whatever it might be, without really getting back in there to tussle again. So I think that's such a great sign of where you're at in your relationship. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Hey, to sort of round this out, like I'd love to know, like you've had a 2.5-year relationship, global pandemic, cancer scare 1, cancer scare 2, you've got lessons from past relationships, you've got children that you're navigating, moved in together quite quickly, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you do now to keep that relationship fueled up? Have you got any practices that you do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually that keep you in that really healthy place?
David has a saying. I'm going to let you say it, David. What is your saying about a relationship?
What's my saying?
The choosing saying.
Oh, yes. Every day I like to say, so something that I firmly believe is that every day you wake up with the person, you have to choose to be with that person that day. You can either make the choice to be with that person or not be with that person. And every day I wake up and I look at Tiphany and I choose to be with her. And if I can do that consistently and keep that in my thought process, it's definitely going to make the rest of the day for that person, right? Because there's no wandering eyes. If my eyes are wandering, it's because a cool car drove by, not because a pretty woman, walked by. There's my focus 100% is on Tiphany. And I've made that decision in the morning as soon as I start my day. And so the rest of my day, there's no question about where my heart lies, because I've already told myself in the morning. It's kind of like when you get up and you make the habit of, I'm going to work out in the morning and feel good for the rest of the day. Well, you're making that same choice for the person that you're with. And so if I can look over at her and honestly tell myself, I'm choosing you for today. This is your day. This is you and me. And it really helps to make it easy for me for the rest of my life, really, because I know I'm going to roll over. I'm going to open up my eyes. I'm going to look at her and I'm going to go, I'm choosing you today. So,
yeah, really love that practice.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
So nice. And it is, though. It is a choice.
Yeah,
like we can choose the energy, behavior, habits, rituals that we bring to our relationship and in turn our lives. Like, I really do believe that if we have a better relationship, we can show up in the world and together create a better world. So, and I think it does all come back to, what do I choose? What am I choosing for this moment? What am I choosing for this relationship? What am I choosing for this life? Tiphany, how do you compete with that?
I know, right? I put on a little lingerie here and there, and then I love. I think what I'm going to say as well is in this a similar thing is like you're present with this relationship. We always have a choice, and so for me, I think in my past marriage where it was so toxic was I didn't feel like I had a choice. I was like, okay, I'm married and I'm in it and I have no choice and we're forever and I'm miserable. And now, whether we're living together or if we get married in the future, like I will know that I have a choice every day. Like, yes, I choose to be with him, or if it's no longer serving us, if it's no longer good, I have the choice to not be in the relationship and do it in a respectful, loving, kind way. Right? I wouldn't cheat or whatever, but it'd be like we have a choice every single day. And so I think knowing you have a choice is a really powerful place to come from for both of us. I know he has choices. He knows I have choices. And so we're going to work really hard for that choice to be each other, right? He can live a thriving, healthy, happy life away from me. I can live a thriving, happy, healthy life away from him, but I am choosing for my thriving, healthy, happy life to be with him, and he's choosing for his thriving, healthy, happy life to be with me. And so knowing that is our choice, then that's how we keep it spicy and happy and exciting is we know we chose each other. And that just makes everything we do, whether we're sitting at home and eating leftovers or we're going out for a fancy dinner, we're speaking on a stage. We spoke on a stage together last weekend. Like whatever it is, like we're in it together, and we chose to do that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I love that, and it ties so perfectly into what we were talking about right at the beginning around being an interesting, dynamic, well lit up with hobbies, interest. That you yourself have this incredible life. And then I'm going to share it with you, as opposed to just moving my whole life into your life and not really having much of my own. Because I think that then that does go, well, he is an incredible, sexy, dynamic, interesting person. Of course, somebody else could choose him.
Yeah.
Of course, he has other choices, but I want to be that partner too, that Nath chooses me and I choose him forever. And even the choice to have a choice is a choice.
Right? Oh, we're getting so meta. Woo. So meta. This is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a conversation, and David getting a little bit vulnerable with us. We know that's not your favorite thing to do.
Well, but for you, it was worth it.
Yeah, but
it's been great.
To say thank you, we have provided a student in Indonesia with a week of classroom education. So,
wow.
This project's really special because in Indonesia, and in particular where this project is in Borneo, little girls often don't get the opportunity to go to school. So this project specifically focuses on getting girls into education, which we then know has an incredible ripple effect throughout their lives, but also in their community and country, and therefore the world. So thank you so much for making that possible.
Good for you guys. Thank you.
That's chills. That's beautiful.
Oh, no worries. So Tiphany and David, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about what you do, how can they do that?
All right. Well, we got a lot of ways.
Love that.
A lot of ways.
I'm Tiphany Kane in all of the places. So Tiphany Kane. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, like all the places. I'm Tiphany Kane. My website, tiphanykane.com. So pretty easy. We have an Instagram together called Podcaster Mindset, because we have a podcast we do together called Mastering the Podcaster Mindset.
Yep.
And then, David, how can they find you?
I am davidseiss.sound at instagram.com. I'm also on Twitter now. I'm new to the Twitter game. David Sais SSG. Tiphany, you can tell him about the SSG if you'd like.
Okay, so he's the sexy sound guy.
Yeah.
So SSG.
I love that.
Sexy sound guy. So like all of our students, we teach podcasting, and all of our students now call him the sexy sound guy. It's great. He loves it. So make sure you don't call him David. You call him sexy sound guy. He loves it.
Yeah.
David, was it Elon that got you onto Twitter? Was that the final
totally.
straw? You're like, all right, now I've got to do it.
Yeah. No, actually, it was Tom Rossi of Buzzsprout.
Okay.
Yeah. So
more powerful than Elon Musk.
In our world, definitely more powerful than Elon. Yeah.
Plus, he's totally cool. So
yeah, he's a great guy. 100%.
So lots of ways for people to find you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing with us and showing up and being so generous with all of the resources that you've got available too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.